A drone attack has been carried out on a gas station in the occupied Tokmak city of Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia region, local Telegram channels reported. As a result of the attack of the Ukrainian kamikaze drone, an explosion and fire occurred in the tanks containing gasoline and diesel fuel. Equipment belonging to the Russian army, which was refueling at the station at the time of the incident, was also damaged. Employees of the Ministry of Emergency Situations, who were brought to the area to put out the fire, were injured as a result of series of explosions.
Снял.
5 members of the French Parliament from different political forces signed an appeal to the head of the country's defense department, Sébastien Lecornu, in which they called for the creation of a European coalition to send military instructors to Ukraine. This information was voiced by Deputy Frédéric Petit on his page on the social network X. The deputies stressed the importance of training Ukrainian troops in France. The fighters trained by the French army or the armed forces of other European countries gain experience that will be decisive on the battlefield. Therefore, we call on you to send French military instructors to Ukraine, the parliamentarian said. The appeal states that the French armed forces, together with the armies of Great Britain, Poland and the Baltic and Scandinavian countries, can play a key role in this coalition. The emergence of such a coalition would demonstrate to the Kremlin regime the decisive determination of its Western allies to continue supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression, the parliamentarians note. Earlier, media reported that French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot did not rule out the possibility of sending French troops to Ukraine and called for not creating red lines in the issue of supporting Kiev. According to the minister, Kiev may use the aforementioned weapons for self-defense purposes. At the same time, the head of French diplomacy did not specify whether the Ukrainian army had already used these weapons to strike the Russian Federation. Journalists consider Barrot's statement about Ukraine using French missiles to strike Russia to be significant, since it came a few days after the Ukrainian armed forces first hit targets in Russia with similar American and British missiles. Barrot noted that Western allies should not set any red lines in the issue of supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression. The minister promised to support Ukraine for as long as it takes and stressed that all of European security is at stake. Meanwhile, it became known that France is accelerating the delivery of Mirage fighters to Ukraine. This was announced by Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenski after a telephone conversation with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron. I highly appreciate that France understands the challenges we face, the Ukrainian president said. Russian troops complain about ammunition transferred to them by North Korea. Russian soldiers say there are problems with the use of shells, RBC Ukraine reports, citing Nazar Voloshin, spokesperson for the Khortytsia Operational Strategic Grouping of Troops. We have information that Russian troops are complaining about difficulties in using ammunition supplied by North Korea. In other words, they don't fly where they should, and Russians cannot handle them properly, Voloshin said. According to the Ukrainian military, Russian soldiers on the front line are also complaining about poor logistical support. This includes a lack of ammunition, food and water. This problem has become particularly acute for them with the onset of cold weather. They are even complaining about the lack of warm clothing. Voloshin added, North Korea previously supplied the Russian army with artillery, ammunition and ballistic missiles, which Moscow uses to attack Ukraine. In the fall, the reports informed that North Korea had sent over 10,000 of its soldiers to Russia. They underwent training at Russian military ranges and were then deployed to the Kursk region. Ukrainian military sources reported that North Korean troops had already participated in combat operations. Media also reported casualties among not only North Korean soldiers but also officers. Furthermore, according to the Financial Times, Pyongyang supplied Russia with long-range missile and artillery systems. Recall, the Russian military is receiving Iranian shells, which are praised as good and cursed by North Koreans. Due to the low quality of the powder, they are used in situations where accuracy and viability, and in general the exit of the projectile from the barrel, is of the least importance. Iranian shells leave traces of soot, which have to be cleaned from the firing pin, but fly very well. The portfolio of the General Staff channel writes, North Korean shells do not reach their targets, he adds, because the powder charge in the shells often does not match the declared one. Supplied in a hurry, even without firing tables, the ammunition displayed systematic dispersion in range, reported by Russian artillerymen from the front line. Determined to find out the reason of poor performance, a Russian military-themed general telegram shared a photo post detailing the research on North Korean propellant charges for 152mm projectiles marked NDT-3. Although this marking actually refers to the contents and the actual name of the shell is unknown. Ukrainian military expert Dmitry Snegirev said that spare parts used in Bulava intercontinental ballistic missiles were found at the site of the Oresnik fall. In his opinion, the reaction from Western countries to the Oresnik tests was not what Putin had expected. The Netherlands handed over 3 Patriot air defense missile launch systems to us, which significantly strengthened Ukraine's anti-missile and air defense. By the way, Patriot can work on Oresnik warheads or Kedra in the Ukrainian classification. Also, Western countries unanimously stated that they will not reduce the pace of military technical support for Ukraine, he noted on air at Espresso. The analyst emphasized that British intelligence stated that Oresnik is most likely the working name of the RS-26 project, which is better known in Russian classification as an unimplemented missile project that was terminated in 2011. The West understands perfectly well what they are dealing with. Moreover, spare parts used in Bulava intercontinental ballistic missiles were found at the site of the Oresnik fall. These missiles went on combat duty in 2012. Accordingly, what new technologies Putin is talking about is a question exclusively for him, Snegirev added. There is nothing particularly new in the capabilities of the Oresnik missile. The use of this type of weapon will not lead to an escalation of the war by Russia, reports the Institute for the Study of War, ISW. The report states that Russian President Vladimir Putin's efforts to highlight the technical characteristics of the Oresnik missile are part of a broader reflexive control campaign being conducted by the Kremlin. The ISW believes that emphasizing the missile's range and payload while comparing its destructive capabilities to that of a meteor is intended to intimidate Ukraine and the West and divert Kyiv from further Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory using Western systems. Even Putin's threat of strikes on decision-making centers in Kyiv rings empty. Russian forces regularly strike civilian and critical infrastructure in Kyiv city with drones and nuclear-capable missiles, the report states. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenski summarized this fact on November the 29th in response to Putin's statements at a CSTO Security Council meeting in Kazakhstan, saying Putin wants to add thousands more to the thousands of missiles that have already hit Ukraine.